So if you want to build an anti-early extension swing, so know how to craft it and piece it together, this is the video for you, because that's exactly what we're going to get into. So we're going to talk about in this video each part of the golf swing, what you need to have in those parts of the golf swing to not early extend. As early extension is a result of things happening in your golf swing earlier to make up for it. So that's where if we can get the right pieces in our golf swing, we can craft a swing that is completely resistant to early extension. So this is going to be a comprehensive step-by-step guide on how to do it. So let's get straight into the first bit. So guys, number one here, let's get into setup. But this, again, like we said, this is a comprehensive guide. There won't be a bunch of edits at all in this video. This is just absolutely pure info, me chucking info at you on how to do this. So again, setup. This is so important for not early extending, because we would want to set up here where we are just like this. So again, you might be thinking that looks just like a normal setup, but what am I actually doing here? I have got my armpits over the balls of my feet. Now, when the armpits are over the balls of the feet, essentially what you are doing there, you have got the mass of your upper body on top of the mass of your lower body. So then as you swing the golf club, the mass of your upper body is going to be nicely managed by your lower body because it's directly on top of it. So that means you're going to be able to keep your balance better. So if you imagine that this stick here is a tightrope, for example, and let's say my mat is some huge canyon. I'm over the Grand Canyon or something like that. I'm standing on it here. If I am standing straight up like so, it is far easier for me to keep my balance. If I start to tip and hinge my hips and move more this way, what am I going to have happen to keep my balance? I'm going to have to quickly go back up again. So that's how balance and how you're set up massively influences you. So if I'm set up in a way where I've got far too much hip hinge, which is so many golfers, lots of hip hinge, really big stretch in the hamstring, curve of the lower back, straight back from here. It's like I'm over the Grand Canyon standing on, like, let's say a little tightrope there, and I now need to quickly rebalance myself, because as I start to swing then, all the mass of my upper body, the weight of it's going to be on my toes or even out front of that, because my armpits will be over my toes. So then to quickly gain my balance, I have to stand up in the downswing. If I don't, I'll just fall over, there'll be too much pressure on my toes. So that's why it's so important to get into that good setup so you're not going to fall into the canyon. So a good little way to go and get in that setup every time is have a slight bend of the knees, and then what I want you to do, stand dead straight upright like you're talking to someone in front of you. Then grab your club, and then all I want you to do is get your club onto the ground behind the golf ball by just relaxing your mid and upper back. Boom. There we go. So now my armpits are over the balls of my feet. Now, if you're someone like myself with long arms, you might have to take a little shuffle back there just to get yourself a little bit more comfortable. But again, I'm not doing anything by changing my posture. So again, knees a little bit bent, just dead upright with my back, hold the club directly in front of me, relax mid and upper back till I get to the ground, no hip hinging. There we go. If I need to shuffle, then I'm in a good spot, and then I can swing back, swing through and not fall into the canyon. So number two is in setup as well, and that is grip. Yes, absolutely. There are grip styles out there which can absolutely encourage early extension to happen. So what do we want to do as a safe bet here for what to do? And that is having a nice standard neutral grip. So I like to see 2.5 or 2 knuckles on that left hand for most golfers, and with their right hand, that line between thumb and the meat of the hand pointing towards like your right armpit area or just right side of the right pec. Now that's going to encourage a nice square club face throughout the swing, square to the arc. So then I can stay in my posture and turn, because I don't need to do anything else. If, again, other points that we're going to talk about are kept nicely, but I won't have to do anything else to square that club face. I can stay in that posture and turn through. Nice, simple one, standard grip. Because what we see quite a lot of golfers do, strong grip. So this is where so from a video over a couple of weeks ago, I'll talk to them blue in the face about a strong grip is really hard to make work for so many golfers. So that's if you grip the club, let's say, for our example here, 4 knuckles, as strong as we can get, which is a lot of you out there. And then with your right hand underneath the club on the side there, to where that line between thumb and the meat of the hand is pointing behind you. So you're now going to have big problems with trying to manage this club face, because a strong grip, what does that do? Closes the club face down more, of course. So a lot of you will be doing that because you want to fix your slice. Again, I've got actually a complete guide on how to fix an over the top slice. That's from last year as well, so have a good check out of that. So as soon as we swing back, yes, that club face is going to get more shut. Club face is going to point up to the air, so straight up to the sky, very closed. So if I now try to stay in my posture and turn, that club face is way too closed coming into impact. Unless I'm Dustin Johnson, who can get so much rotation, I can square it via shaft lean, and lots of it. But that's where what would happen for vast majority of the golfers who have that strong grip and closed face, they're going to stand their body up. They're going to early extend, because what that does, that gets the hands going upwards, raises them, and then that opens the club face up and squares it. So early extension is their mechanism to be able to square their face. Not good. That's where with weak grip players, absolutely can suffer as well from early extension. Gripping the club, let's say, with one knuckle, very weak. And with the right hand, the line between thumb and the meat of the hand towards your left shoulder. So always pay attention to your grip, guys. So many lessons come through to me on Skillist from people who say they just don't think they have the physical capability to be able to not early extend, and their grip's terrible, and they've got a really open or closed club face. Again, myself, golfer with cerebral palsy, I'm disabled. I can swing in a way where I don't early extend. It's not because of my disability or mobility in general, it's because I've got the things in my swing not to do it. That's why I'm telling you in this video how to build this swing. So if I've got that weak grip, the club face is going to want to open, of course. So I've got to find a way in the downswing to be able to square it. So that's going to mean my body is going to early extend, it's going to stall out to be able to square the club face either from an early release or a roll release. So that's where early extension is putting on the brakes to give you time to do that. So a nice standard neutral grip is what we want. That just makes life easier for you. Boom, and there we go. There we can stay in our posture and work nicely. Okay, so that's our setup done. Let's move our attention into the takeaway. And first and foremost, the most important thing when it comes to the takeaway, and that is how you're moving with your club face. So we just got into grip, which is the biggest influence on your club face, but I'm well aware from the amount of golf swings I've seen that you can have a nice standard grip and your club face can still either get too closed or too open. Takeaway is a big reason for that. So I want players to have their hands go in and club go slightly out. Now there's multiple reasons why this is good, which we're going to get into a little bit. So when those hands go in, club goes out just like so, with a little chest rotation, fairly quiet lower body. That is one, keeping the club face square to my spine angle, and it's setting up good shaft movement for the rest of my swing. So when that club head is outside the hand, it will promote more of a good shaft travel up to the top, good arm movement, good shaft movement at the top of our swing. Again, there is a point in this later on in this video. But we want hands in, club out, standard grip. Alongside with that, your club face is going to be square. So good, we've got that takeaway sorted. We don't want too much forearm rotation, that's going to open it. We don't want too much forearm supination, which is rolling it too much the other way, which will then make you way too shut. So nice neutral forearm movement, just keep it simple. Have just hands in, club out with a little chest rotation. There we go. So we could do a little drill there. Hands in, club out, and then swing up, swing through, club face is nicely square. So let's talk about mid backswing now. So there's a couple things we want to do and see in mid backswing. So it's going to be a little bit of a longer portion, this bit. This is really important for making sure you're not early extending. Again, like we said, it's stuff that's happening early in the golf swing that causes early extension to happen. So, okay, mid backswing, we want to, number one, see this right arm. So let's talk about this part first. So right arm's in a good spot. When I talk about right arm being in a good spot, I mean in front of the seam line. So the seam line of my body warmer here, I want to keep the right arm nicely in front of that. Because what that will do for you, if the right arm's in front of your seam line, you're turning up to the top, it will make your club shaft either down the line or slightly laid off. So why that's so beneficial for us is because then as we move into the downswing, we don't have to do much to shallow the golf club. And you need to be slightly shallow at the least to be able to stay in your posture and turn. So right arm staying in front of seam line. That's why I like the feeling of, let's say you're turning up to top whilst doing a half bicep curl. So like you're in a gym doing a half bicep curl. You know, you have a little lift of the right arm whilst you do that. That's our movement. We don't want a full one, that'll get you lack of width. You could still stay in posture with a lack of width though, but we don't want to be massively having that right arm moving behind. We want it to stay in front for better shaft angle, slightly laid off so we can keep the shaft shallow and turn. Right arm staying in front. Now, when your right arm gets a little bit behind, a little bit pulley inwards, so that's kind of like that starting the lawnmower move. that will make you a little bit across the line at the top. So then you're going to get steep and then you will early extend. One of the biggest things that causes early extension is a steep shaft. So that's why we're making that mid backswing in a place that really helps us ensure ourselves that we're not going to have that steep shaft in the downswing. So just like early extension, steep shaft is normally a byproduct of things that have happened earlier in the golf swing. So right arm staying in front, nice little tip here, kind of thing to keep this nice, is having that setup again. Right elbow inside of it, pointing in front of you. That's a really good one to be able to go and do. So, okay, that will help that natural movement, the right arm staying in front. So that's not only it, for also this mid backswing, we want to start to get this right hip being moved backwards. So we want this right hip to start to be pulled back as we go back there. This is called hip depth and having really good hip depth. So that is where we are starting to turn those hips after that takeaway, getting that right hip being pushed back, because that will then, you being pushed back, will add you into a little bit of hip flexion, which will make it easy then to go and hip flexion in the downswing, which will get you in your posture, squatting down nicely, so then you can turn through the shot. Hip depth and pushing those hips back, the right hip in the backswing, is so crucial to be able to get this. So if you can keep that right arm nicely in front, and then make sure that right hip is going back, you're in a really good spot now to not early extend in the downswing. Because if your hips start to go forward, what do you think is going to happen from there? They're just going to continue to go forward in the downswing. This again is so many students who send in their videos to me on Skillist who've, let's say, sending them because they're struggling with early extension, not knowing why, again, thinking it's just something their body cannot do. But why is that? It's not because their body can't do it, it's because their pelvis moves towards the golf ball. Even by a little bit of a lack of hip depth will make you early extend. You only need it to move a tiny bit forward. That sets in motion it continuing to go forward. So really, really important. Okay, so top of the backswing. So top of the backswing, we already talked a little bit about shaft angle when we talk about mid backswing, but also your hand and arm depth. Now, we would want to typically see at the top that you've got your left arm covering your shoulder plane. So obviously flip that around for a left-handed golfer. So that's going to mean that as you start to swing down, the club's going to be on good path. So hand and arm depth. So we need to have that club travel on good path to continue to stay in posture and turn through the golf ball to maintain everything. Because if we're up here with the lead arm too high, we've picked the arms up, the club traveling out in front of us is going to make us really out to win. The body will have to stand up to be able to make that movement work, to get the club to re-shallow coming into the ball, pull the club more in to be functional. Or if you're way too deep, dragged it all around you, you'll have to early extend to chuck everything back out in front of you again. So again, that's where early extension is happening to help you out there. But that's where if you've hit those other points, like you've got that mid backswing with the right arm nice in front of you and you've got that right hip going back, you're going to be in good depth. So that's why I said that is ultimately the most important part of this video, is that mid backswing portion. So making sure you've got that good hand and arm depth at the top, that's going to make life so much easier for having an, let's say, anti-early extension swing. But there is wiggle room here. Like I said, I want the left arm to be covering the shoulder plane, but you don't have to be there perfectly. You can be a little bit above it, a little bit below it, fine. We just don't want to be extreme on either side. So absolutely good hand and arm depth. So let's get to the next bit, starting the downswing. So this is what most golfers will think is the most important part to making early extension, let's say an anti-early extension swing, fixing it for themselves. And it can be, but most often it's something early in the golf swing that is causing players to early extend. But we need to nail this bit, of course. If we want that anti-early extension swing, we've got to have it in there. It's a good start to the downswing. So now we've got our right hip back. We're in a little bit of hip flexion there. We'll actually be in a little bit of left bend, but our hips are primed backwards. So now what we want to do, now we're in all these other good spots we just talked about, we want the left hip to be pushed back. So what do you see there? When that left hip gets pushed back, it looks like I'm squatting down more, doesn't it? That is hip flexion in a nutshell. If we are getting that left hip going back, gets you in more hip flexion, which then forces the upper body more down. So this is where a lot of players, once they get this, they're there. They are really there, and it's quite simple from there. So that's where, when you get that left hip going back, that gets you flexing down, which flexion is the opposite of extension, and then you just continue to push that left hip back. And that keeps you down, that keeps you in your posture. So really making sure left hip pushing back in the downswing. So we are going to get into in this video a drill that pieces it all together, a nice little drill exercise to do for there. That's why all these are going to be very difficult to individually put in there. It's generally what a lot of you might have to do, but the knowledge area of this is so important. But we have to push that left hip back as we start down. If we don't do that and we just try to spin the hips, we're just going to stand up. So again, if we're trying to spin the hips with the right side, terrible. This is going to make you clear the hips with the left side with hip flexion. Brilliant. So that is starting our downswing to encourage us to not have an early extension swing. So last little bit, let's get straight into it. Now, last little bit. So this is moving through the golf ball, because our last point of that hip flexion, left hip moving back, will get us down to around shaft parallel. Now, what do we do from here? Technically, we get the left hip moving back more. We just continue to move the left hip back, but more in depth what that actually is as we're moving through the ball, that is your left side starting to extend and your right side flexing down. So this is where we see those tour players. We'll see them having that left leg start to straighten as they're getting into the golf ball. You'll see that right side drop. So that's extension on one side, flexion on the other. That will happen naturally for you. So we want that left side just to continually be pushed back, 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 back. And that just gets us into that nice left leg extension, which is a simple way of us approaching this, just to get that left hip continue to push back. But also make sure that right side is going down. Now this should happen when your left side extends, but I have seen players who have extended their left side and their right side has stayed up. Because if you extend your left side and right side goes up, you won't early extend, but your club's just going to tumble out in front of you. So that's where I like to see that right side going down. It's like you're skipping a stone across a pond. Same type of body movement, not necessarily the arm movement, but the body movement is what we want. So extending that left side, but more than anything, just keep pushing the left hip back. So the downswing, you can really just view as push the left hip back, more and more and more back, and then you won't early extend. Boom. There we go. So, okay, let's talk about the drill to piece it all together. Okay, so here is our drill. So our drill, you need two things to be able to build this. We need an alignment stick. We need a chair, preferably. It can be a golf bag as well. So the good old classic chair drill has returned. So, okay. Now, what this is technically, this is called a swing mapping drill. Now, if you're building any motion in the golf swing, or you're trying to, let's say, rebuild your swing, you won't be able to do it without a swing mapping drill. So if we grab our alignment stick and put the alignment stick up the left-hand side of the golf club, just like so. That's what we want to do. Okay, so now, as we're set up, you're going to notice how that stick is touching your left side. So see how it's running up my left-hand side there? That's great. That's going to be good for us in the early takeaway. So I've got my setup. We know what to do from there. Good. Got a good grip. Brilliant. So if you stand to where this chair is just at the back of your hamstrings here, or your golf bag, or whatever it is you choose to use. And then what we want to see, as you start to go back, we want that stick sliding down the left side. So like I said, a little bit of chest rotation and making sure that stick is sliding down that left side. Okay, that's going to give you that nice neutral takeaway. Brilliant. Club face is square. So if you've got that right arm nicely set up in a good spot as well, you could be priming a good right arm movement. So now, as we start to go from here up, start to gradually push the chair back and have this stick being down on a ball line. So if you were set up to a golf ball, because you don't have to have a ball doing this at all, but let's have the ball here for reference. Again, sliding that stick down and now pushing that chair back, having that stick tracing that ball line there. So then if we continue to go up to the top, keep pushing that chair back, you can notice how the stick's going to point slightly in front of you, and that's going to mean that little bit of a laid off shaft. And then all we want to do from there is simply push that chair back with the left hip all the way through, even to the finish. So that's how we got into it in such complexity, which we need to understand that. But now we're just doing something really, really simple. So that's where, of course, knowing that the little bits that you're doing in the certain areas is great, but you don't need to think of all those little areas. A drill just like this, where you're pushing the chair back after takeaway, making sure this stick is going along the ball line, and then points in front of you, and then going in front of you in the downswing, is all you need to do to have a good drill to feel those feelings. So what you can do, absolutely, do a bunch of this. And then if you want to grab a ball, and then have, let's say, a net in front of you would be ideal. Get up to the top of your swing. So we get right up to the top, pause, and then push the chair back and swing through. That's all we need to do. If you can rep that out a ton, that'd be absolutely brilliant. So we can do it with our practice swing. Of course, sliding the stick down the takeaway, pushing the chair back with the right hip and getting the stick pointed in front, but pushing the chair back with the left hip in the downswing, all the way through to your finish. And then you can do that with, again, a golf ball. Just pausing at the top just to make it a little bit easier. Again, better into a net because the ball isn't going to go very far when you do this. Here's a little practice tip and really good one here. So I'm just grabbing this little ball here because this is not a normal ball, a foam ball. Now, this is an extremely important thing. So for those of you who are still watching this video, thank you very much, because this is exactly the most important part right here. This tip is going to save you so much time, and that is using a foam ball when you're hitting balls into the net. So why a foam ball? Because with a foam ball, you can get into positions you technically wouldn't be able to get into, first and foremost, with a ball when you're starting working on a new movement. Because you're not hitting something with that much mass to it, your body is not going to have the kind of tensing up move, which is one of the big things that prevents your swing, let's say in the early stages of a swing change, the move from getting into your swing is that tensing braking movement. So that's where when you have a foam ball there, it's so light and it's got almost no mass to it. Of course it still does, but your body will not have that same tensing move. It will act like a practice swing more, and we know we can move our body a little bit better in our practice swing. So if I do that same drill, the body is going to get way more rotated. Now, as you notice there, the ball's not going to have quite as much lift, so it will go a little bit thinny. It will feel like it as well. But ultimately, view this as kind of like a glorified practice swing where you're physically hitting something. So it's going to have a little bit more of a subconscious trigger in your brain, but you can swing like a practice swing as well, which is brilliant. So again, if you do a bunch of those, let's say then move the stick away. Now you've done an absolute ton of those. I would recommend, if you want to build this swing, do your first week or 2 weeks of practice just doing with those pause drills with that stick. Because again, we want to build this new type of golf swing. We don't want to encourage our old swing to happen. So don't even try to do your old swing or even replicate the moves in the early first couple of weeks. And then you can take those away and start to use, again, you can do those with a foam ball. And then once you're not doing that stick drill, you've got those feelings in there, try to replicate it with the chair here with a foam ball. You're going to notice that how you could get into some much better positions. Foam balls are so beneficial, but then after you've had a bunch of weeks, let's say months down the line, then you can start to bring the chair out the way and absorb those same feels. You're going to notice that how you're going to be swinging in a much better place. But let's say you know your swing here. This is the important bit. Know your swing, know what to look for in your golf swing. Let's say when you're watching this, you could watch this whilst looking at a swing you may have recorded of yourself. And then see, okay, oh, you might be thinking, oh, my right arm isn't moving quite how we said in the backswing. Let me go and do some drills to fix that. Or my takeaway isn't too great. Let me go and do some drills to fix that. Let me work on these other areas. So that's where you can tailor it to your swing by knowing what to look for. So always know your golf swing. So that's where that can even speed track this even more. There might be a bunch of areas on here you might be absolutely fine with. So that's where it might just be that right arm might not be in a good spot. It might just be you're not getting enough hip depth. And if you fix those, then you're going to be pretty much in that anti-early extension swing anyway. You might not need to rebuild it. You might just need to tweak a couple areas here and boom, there you go. So absolutely guys, well done for watching through this whole video. This video is a long one, just like with my anti-over-the-top video. I really enjoyed making that one. I think a lot of you guys enjoyed watching it as well. I thought early extension would be a great one to make a video just like it too. So a very helpful one. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button if you want more golf instruction just like this. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.